came in for you, Ustad.
Okay.
It's from our beloved brother, Khurram Chaudhry.
Okay.
He asked a very good question. He said, how do you correct an older respectfully, especially around Islamic knowledge?
How do you correct an elder respectfully, especially dealing with Islamic knowledge?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yes.
I mean, I have a question in response to that question. Why do you feel the need to correct people? You can.
Or how do you address something that is a misconception, maybe culturally, that is not?
I think that we miss one of the steps in what we consider amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, before he was enjoining good and forbidding evil or calling out something that was wrong, before that he was had the most perfect manners. Like what people knew about him before anything else was that he is kind, respectful, courteous, merciful, loving, etc. So before you want to correct somebody about what they may be saying wrong or doing wrong or believing wrong, you want to build a kind of relationship where the other doesn't see you as someone who's talking down to them, but rather someone, you as a young person are seen as someone who respects them, who looks up to them, who acknowledges the good in them, and doesn't just see a fault. A lot of times we see someone praying the wrong way, all we see is this person is praying the wrong way. You don't see that this person is kind and charitable and takes care of his family and does a lot of good and made a lot of changes in their life, and you just see they're praying the wrong way. And you want to correct that they're praying the wrong way. Well, if you don't even take the time to get to know a person and to acknowledge the good in them, but the first thing you notice about them is what is wrong with them, and you want to quickly fix that, then that's how people will see. You wouldn't want to be seen that way. You don't want to be defined by what you're doing wrong. You want to be defined as a whole person. Well, why don't you and I learn to do that for others? Like, see them as a person first, and then once you can give that, then maybe there may be a kind, gentle opportunity to bring up something that's wrong. And you don't even have to bring it up directly. You could even say, if somebody was praying the wrong way, you know what I learned about prayer the other day? I learned you're supposed to do this, this, and this. You don't even have to say, I noticed, by the way, that you prayed 6 rak'ah for Maghrib. It's not 6. I don't know where you get double trouble from. It's only 3. You don't have to do that. You know what I learned the other day about Maghrib? You could just come up with a little scenario, make things. Really? Where did you learn that? It was here. You want to see this video? You want to watch this? Can I send this to you? You might. I thought it was pretty cool. Make it about yourself. Don't make it about someone else and making them feel bad. Just make it about you. And that's so gentleness and ra'fa and rahma are part of the attributes of the Messenger ﷺ that are particularly needed when Muslims are dealing with each other. Rahama bainahum. Quran says they are loving and caring among each other. Even when they're correcting each other, it should apply, right? Ashidda ala al-kuffar, rahama bainahum. Where's the rahama bainahum? We have to bring that back, inshallah. A couple more questions.
We have a question from the sister side.
Okay. There's a sister side, guys. Okay. Yeah.
My question is, yesterday you said something about fighting your curiosity.
Yeah.
Is it a normal thing to do though? How do you approach that? And is there any steps you do for fighting that curiosity?
Great question. Phenomenal question. So fighting your curiosity. So, by the way, human beings by design are curious creatures. And actually the progress that humanity has made in every field is a result of what? Curiosity. So curiosity in and of itself clearly is a massive blessing of Allah. So we shouldn't discriminate against this inclination that we have of being curious as human beings. What I did say yesterday though was fight your curiosity. Let's talk about that specific context. Where must I fight my curiosity and how must I fight my curiosity? Here's the thing. I'll give you an analogy I gave a long time ago. I think it'll help with this. Imagine that there's a professor that used to teach business, right? And he left the teaching and he went and started his own business, became a multi-billionaire, extremely successful. The business is running on its own now. And he decides that he wants to come back and teach again, just because he wants to give back. right? So he wants to benefit young people from not only his professional teaching experience, but his real life business experience, right? And he loves teaching by way of telling a story. So he comes to the classroom and he tells the students a story about there's this man, he wants to sell shoes. He first looked at which location would be best to sell these shoes. He looked at the price point of these shoes and the median income of that neighborhood. He looked at the kind of marketing that's been effective in that neighborhood. He looked at the suppliers, the product. Basically, he's going through every component of the business side, but he's putting it in the form of what? A story, right? And that's easy for students to remember and remember the components that are involved in the making of a successful business. And he does a pretty darn good job at creating that story and addressing all of the elements that are needed for a successful business. And then a student raises his hand and he says, this businessman that started a shoe store, how tall is he? And this other student raises his hand, I'm curious, so what color socks does he wear when he starts his business? And another one raises his hand, so when he started his business, what does he eat for lunch? I'm just curious. Now, can you tell there's something fundamentally wrong with that curiosity? What's wrong with it? The purpose of this lesson was to get you curious about supply, demand, location, marketing, quality of product. The context is business. And in this context, all of your curiosities are guided towards the subject matter, right? Now let me tell you, and these questions represent two things. When students ask these questions, it's two things. One, they are incredibly stupid. They miss the point entirely. And two, they are deliberately trying to distract from the real subject. They're trolling the teacher. You understand? Those are the two possibilities. You're so dense you miss the point entirely, or you're distracting the teacher from the real purpose. Now, Allah has a purpose in telling us a story, yes or no? Okay? Allah has a purpose in telling us a story. He tells us a story about some young people who fled into a cave, right? Now, my curiosity should be, why did they flee to a cave? What do I learn from it? What was the benefit of them going to sleep? Why did Allah Azza wa Jal give us this? They must have had so many conversations. Why did Allah record only this part of the conversation? But if my curiosity was that dog a German Shepherd? Or was that a Chihuahua? And if it was a dog, did it bark like a scary bark, or did it have like a little kind of... I want to know if Mufassirun addressed my curiosity. Do you see a problem with that kind of curiosity? It's missing what? It's missing the point. So we have to train ourselves when we're studying the Quran. It's not hard, because the Quran is very clear about the point that it's making. That's not a heavy intellectual exercise. We can actually decipher what the point of the story is, and then limit our curiosity to further benefit from the fundamental point. So let me tell you unhealthy curiosities about this story. Unhealthy curiosities could be, where is this beach? What kind of ship was it that it got damaged so easily? How many masakin were there? 10, 12, 15, or 20? Who was this king? Was he French? Was he German? Was he Spanish? Because the Spaniards had a lot of ships. You know? When they worked in the sea, what kind of job did they have? Is it taking away from the point? Yeah, and if Musa alayhi salam had, by the way, before we go, I just have some other curiosities. It's not the case, right? So it's actually just to step back, and one should, the way to address healthy curiosity is when you're learning Allah's religion, just take a step back and ask yourself one fundamental question. Is the answer to my question going to benefit me in my relationship with Allah? Is the answer to this question going to benefit me in my connection to Allah's words? Because the purpose of Allah's words, according to Allah, is remembering Him and getting counsel from Him. Counsel means advice. موعظة, and healing of some sort. شفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة, and it's guidance and it's mercy. So is my question going to enhance me in a counsel from Allah? Is it going to enhance me in my personal guidance? Is it going to enhance me in my remembrance and appreciation of Allah? If I start asking those fundamental questions, the kinds of curiosity that are unhealthy will start getting filtered out, isn't it? So, we shouldn't lose sight of those fundamental questions that we should ask ourselves. Because the Quran is very clear about its purpose. Just like that business professor was clear about his purpose, but some students just didn't want to get it. Right? Great question, by the way. Yes. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand forgetfulness in the surah. Because when a fish jumps out of a basket and goes into the sea, and it's not something you forget. And even in the hadith, right, on this, it even says like Musa and his fatah, they saw the ajaba, right, when they look at the fish. And so I've always struggled with the concept of forgetfulness. How is it possible to forget?
Really great question.
So one possibility I have, and I wanted to get first understand how you think about it, but it reminds me of Adam and Hawa. And it's Surah Taha, right? There's hidden Adam in Qablu, Vanessa. And they're only given one instruction.
Right.
So is this maybe like a comparable thing? We give you one instruction as a human being. And Adam has it, Musa has it. You have one instruction. Remember Allah. And you have all these signs around it. But still you forget. And so it's possible.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe if you could just help me understand.
I think your understanding is quite solid already. The idea that's being communicated in the forgetfulness component of this story is that you stopped at the right place, all the right signs occurred, you were so focused on this mission, you had no other task, right? And yet they forgot. And in it is an embedded lesson that sometimes you are so focused on the task that you might even miss out on the task itself. Like, I give my students the example, you're looking at the text like this. And you're like, I can't see anything. Because you got to what? Take a step. Oh, wow, how did I miss that? Because you were too stressed, too focused, and or too overwhelmed by a certain task, and that can make you forget. Some people, they get really nervous when they get pulled over by the police. You know that? Right? Cops in the East Coast especially, you don't open the door if you get pulled over, right? And they know that, but they pull over, or some people start speeding extra, astaghfirullah. And then the cops yelling at them, astaghfirullah. And they're supposed to stop, but they're getting even worse because when you're stressed or you have too much anxiety, then something so basic can slip because this is a human flaw. It seems that Musa alayhi salam wakes up and he's in such an overwhelming, enthusiastic hurry to keep the journey going that he envelops his student Yusha ibn Nun in the same hurry. And that major thing that happened kind of gets sidetracked. Even though I can't imagine being sidetracked by that, but actually Allah is telling us that even a single instruction, something so fundamental, we human beings are very easily, we easily fall into the trap of forgetfulness. But it's also interesting that Yusha offered a rationale for why he forgot. He said, وَمَا أَنْسَانِيهُ إِلَّا شَيْطَانُ أَنْ أَذْكُرَهُ. Which is interesting. What did the devil have to do with him forgetting? Technically, he just got distracted, right? So what happens there is you were given a task. And one hadith, I don't know which hadith narration you read, but the Bukhari narration, there's a couple of variations. One narration, Yusha alayhi salam saw the fish, just take off, was about to wake up his teacher, and then decided that my teacher is so tired, I won't tell him yet, let him completely rest. Right? So he put off his task. Now, what he told his teacher, or he thought to himself that I should let Musa alayhi salam sleep, that in and of itself is a good thing, isn't it? You're being courteous to your teacher. But he compromised his obligation, which was a good, for another good that he considered. The devil may not just get you by telling you to do something bad. The devil might get you to forget your fundamental task by keeping you busy with a secondary good task. right? And that's actually one of the inclinations in this ayah. The secondary task became primary temporarily to Yusha alayhi salam. And he realizes that's actually one of the tricks of shaitan. One of the ways to look at that trick of shaitan is that he got me busy with concern for you, and then got me busy for going, following you, and the actual fundamental task slipped temporarily from me, right? And so from it we might learn that for example, in this religion we have fara'id, right? Salah is supposed to be prayed kitaban mawquta at a certain time. Now while you're about to pray, there's some other opportunity to do some good deed, some da'wah to somebody, or talk to somebody. A non-Muslim wants to ask about, I'll finish in a second. A non-Muslim wants to ask about Islam. You're like, this is a good time for me to talk to them. It's a good thing, but salah has priority or no? It is, and you might end up talking to this person so long that Maghrib came in, you missed your Asr, right? And you left a better thing for still a good thing, and that might be a trick of shaitan too. Because nobody forgets Asr on purpose, right? So that might be one of the embedded lessons, Allahu Ta'ala A'lam. Jazakallahu khairan. Okay, time's up, inshallah. Jazakallahu khairan, everybody. I'll stick around after Salah as long as I can. I'll be in the middle so I can have access to both our sons, daughters, and brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.